Hi, everyone. This is Jason Bierach of Wall Street from Main Street. Welcome back to another Wall Street from Main Street podcast interview. Today's special guest is a returning guest. I had him on a little over a year ago. He is the co-founder of Bitgold and also the chief strategy officer at Bitgold. First of all, Josh, thank you for coming back on, and congrats on 1 million users. You have a great business idea, and I'm excited for you guys, what you guys are accomplishing right now.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me back. And absolutely, we're just getting started. So, yes, it's going to be fun.
Now, Josh, I want to ask you about the gold price. We've had a big rally in gold in U.S. dollar terms since December. Why do you think this has happened?
Yeah, I think, when you're talking about anything in finance, you're talking about expectations. And I think what you had after, the almost decade-long run-up in gold prices into, 2011, is you had expectations, at least in U.S. dollar terms. Let's forget other currencies, because gold has actually been going up against most currencies for over 2 years now. But when we're just talking about U.S. dollar specifically, we're talking about expectations that for the last couple of years, the expectations was that, the economy is getting stronger and we've got a normalization of interest rates coming. So that was the forward-looking expectation on real interest rates. Combined with that, you had a falling marginal cost for almost 4 years off of the shale revolution and what's the significant changes in global energy prices. So really, you had two headwinds to gold for the last few years. But as we laid out in some of our research back in November, pretty much independent of the Fed, is we said that the gold was about to re-enter an upcycle in U.S. dollars, just like it has against most currency for the last couple of years.
Yeah, the U.S. dollar got so strong at one point 5 or 6 months ago that it was actually hurting a lot of the developing countries that had commodity currencies or exported a lot of oil or base metals because, they owed a lot of debt in U.S. dollar terms and their currency had fallen so much. And you brought up a little earlier how, the gold bull market had started in Brazilian real and Australian dollars and Canadian dollars more than 2 years ago. So that makes a lot of sense that the U.S. dollar, if it had kept getting stronger and stronger, there was going to be a lot of major problems with the global economy.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the key word is expectations. Did the U.S. dollar actually get stronger? Are you actually getting paid interest, real interest on your bank account? No. But what was happening is there was expectations that we were going back into normalization. And I think the massive event, really a hinge of history type of event, was when the Bank of Japan announced negative interest rate policies after Davos. And when that happened, you saw almost, literally almost overnight, the global sovereign debt market, moved to what was it, something like $7 to $9 trillion worth of negative yielding sovereign debt globally. And so there was the expectations change that the central banks had no exit plan. And so that, I think that was really the Q1 event. Of course, in the last couple of weeks, you've had more, slightly more bullish economic data out of the U.S., slightly more hawkish Fed. And so, some of the momentum chasing from Q1 has come off. But if you look at that fundamental asymmetry, when was the last time a country decided overnight to revalue their currency up by 40%? These things only go one way, and so I think we're only at the beginning of another strong gold upcycle.
Yeah, I agree. I think the central bankers, especially the Federal Reserve, they were promising, I think, 4 interest rate increases in 2016, and here we are almost halfway through the year, and we don't even have one yet. So, they're saying, oh, we're going to do one in June or July, but I just don't know if I really believe them anymore. And if they do 1 or 2 rate increases, something in the real economy or these leveraged asset markets, it could break, and then the Fed will backtrack. So I think, there was this false narrative, and a lot of the Wall Street people, maybe it was hopium, they wanted to believe that the U.S. economy is doing well, so their stocks would keep going up. And, people are starting to realize, hey, wait, if the economy was doing better, then they would have already raised interest rates, and yet they haven't.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the problem is, just the global system is so fragile. You mentioned, you mentioned the uncertain outlook for other currencies as well, the changing commodity prices. Of course, we're entering an MPL cycle in China and their financial system. So really all of the drivers the last 10 years global growth are sitting at a very, uncertain inflection. So, and then here you are with interest rates at the zero bound. So, I mean, ultimately, we believe it'd be good for the world if these central banks would start normalizing and actually start paying a real interest rate, or allowing the savers to hold hold currency with a real interest rate. But that's just against their point of view, and it's in my opinion to use your show, it's good for Wall Street and it's bad for Main Street. So what we've created at Gold Money is another alternative system in a commodity that has a couple millennium worth of mathematical proof that it holds value, and it just becomes an alternative asset to use as a currency.
Now I want to transition to questions about the business that you co-founded with Roy Sabag about Bitgold. What problems, when you decided to create Bitgold, were you trying to solve in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think there was a few things. I mean, starting at its most basic again is we believe that there's an absolute monopoly on economic thought and central banking, that somehow negative real interest rates is good for the economy. I think the mathematical proof shows that it has not been good for the economy. It's good for asset prices and it's good for the rich, of which Roy and I have been very successful in financial services. So we built this business because we saw a very unjust financial system, and we wanted to democratize access to a safe, reliable medium that's actually a lot less volatile than our current currency systems. And so for us, it was, how do we spread access? Again, we mentioned we saw this long cycle at an inflection point. We wanted to build a business into this and really just give everyday people access to gold just like they would anything else through technology, better, faster, more secure access.
Now, I've been reading articles for the last couple months about the journalists mention different countries where Bitgold is used. In terms of you looking at your own business, which countries have the most rapid user growth based on the data that you guys have?
Yeah, so it really is always changing, and we're still at such an early stage where because it hasn't yet, we're building this global network effect before we start any local network effect. So, the really interesting thing is, we're shifting all the time on where our signups are coming from, where our deposits are coming from. And so you have these little micro networks that keep forming to create a bigger network. I would say overall, just from a very roughly speaking, you can say sort of 30% North America, 30% Europe, and 30% Asia and the rest of the world, which is not too different than most financial, global financial, markets or products. And for us, it's all about building better technology, marketing, payment rails to service different markets. So, I think some of those other markets, as we increase utility of the platform, as we increase our presence in certain local markets, that will always be changing.
Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news, but Venezuela is basically going through a currency crisis, hyperinflation. There's shortages of electricity and food and so many other different things there. Are you seeing a lot more interest from Venezuelan people who, they can't trust their currency anymore? They have whole backpacks full of Venezuelan bolivars. Are more Venezuelan users actually like saying, you know what, I have a smartphone, I'm going to add the Bitgold app, I'm going to, start buying Bitgold and doing it that way?
Yeah, we've been seeing, in fact, Venezuela was a decent, for those that have followed the Alexa.com rankings of where some of our user bases are, have seen that really since the beginning, Venezuela has been a place that a lot of people have been signing up. So, this was something that was, people could see coming a mile away. Anyone that understands the problems in central planning. And so, it really is. It's just a sad human situation that such a rich culture, a resource-rich country can just have an absolute collapse, because, their only lever is a money printing press. And so yeah, it is sad, but, are we getting those transactions? It's very tough. Once you get to the point of capital controls and problems in infrastructure, I wouldn't say it's too late, but it becomes very difficult. So we're really building this platform to give those alternatives, hopefully before it happens.
Yeah, I know they're using a lot of U.S. dollars on the ground there, but, for the citizens in Venezuela, I think a lot of them still do have smartphones and they use, social media when it's not blocked by the government. So it would make sense to use things like cryptocurrencies and also Bitgold. So hopefully more of the younger Generation X and millennial Venezuelans will tell the older generations of Venezuelans to try out Bitgold and other things to protect themselves against the hyperinflation there.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely correct, and again, this is the reason. Look, and I don't want to go out there fear mongering and say that saying that's where Western financial systems are heading, but the policies and the misguided belief in central planning is it's got 100% failure rate, and that was really the lessons of last century, and yet we believe that we can manipulate and manage the price of money, which underlies everything else. And so, again, our hope is that this, and by the way, this narrative is growing. You see some very famous investors and fund managers saying the same thing, that it's time to raise interest rates, it's time to normalize. Even if we have to go into recession, we need to make our currency stable. And I sincerely hope, even if that doesn't nominally help the gold price in the short term, I sincerely hope that we can get back to market interest rates.
Amen. That would have to allow the central bankers allowing some free market capitalism, and I'm not sure they're gonna allow that. I think unfortunately things are gonna get worse with the central planning from all these central bankers before things get better. I think we're headed to probably more implementation of negative interest rates in countries like the U.S. and Europe and Japan and probably even China, or not necessarily guaranteed negative interest rates, but some type of financial repression where there's more control over, how people bank and control over interest rates and things like that. Now, Josh, I want to ask you about these new tools you added for Bitgold users in the last couple of weeks.
So
they're free.
Before we get to that, I do want to make another comment. Back in 2000, call it 9, 10, people were probably saying the same thing about the food crisis and oil crisis. And, my former boss, Jeff Curry at Goldman Sachs, actually used to have a brilliant line, never bet against engineers. So the Malthusian thinking, you don't always have to take it to its end point. I'm actually quite an optimist, where I think there's some serious problems with this central planning model. I believe there's many things, like ourselves, like cryptocurrency, like, there's alternatives being invented every day. So that inevitable, so that endpoint is inevitable. And so I think, again, that's really the camp that we're going to sit in, is that, look, we strongly disagree with the path of central banking. And so we're just creating a market alternative. And if people choose to use theirs or use ours, let's let a free market decide. If we're wrong and our theory is wrong, then we'll be wrong. But I just fundamentally believe in free markets.
Well said. I believe in free markets as well, and there's a lot of hardworking entrepreneurs besides you and Roy, trying to disrupt the problems in healthcare in the U.S., trying to lower costs and improve the quality there, and cure cancer. And same thing with the education system, where the cost of education is just getting ridiculous. There's a lot of entrepreneurs like me trying to disrupt educational technology. But I want to ask,
that's what this is all about. This is about seeing problems and not trying to vote away problems, but just going out and solving them. And in that regard, we live in an amazing time. And so I just want to make sure that we don't get too depressed when we look at the volatility and the fragile nature of our financial system.
Yeah, I mean, there is reasons for optimism, besides what the central bankers are doing. There is a lot of good entrepreneurial stuff coming out in many different industries. I want to ask you, though, about your new tools, though, that you just added in the last couple of weeks. You added the ability to pay payroll in gold, the ability for small businesses to pay dividends in gold, to invoice in gold. Are you getting a lot of blowback from some of these governments about, like maybe the U.S. government or other regulators about the ability to do this, or are these things these tools being readily embraced then by small businesses all over the globe?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're not getting pushed back because, number one, we always went in on, the front door of the financial system, not the back door. And I think that's one of the problems with cryptocurrency. There's a lot of brilliant technology and interesting things, but it's fundamentally antagonistic in its approach, and that's never, we're very different because we are within the regulatory system. We're outside of the banking system, but we're inside the regulatory system. So we always had very open discussions with regulators. We always had very open discussions. This is what we're going to do, and as you know, in the U.S., we've been slow to launch certain things because you do have to go on a state-by-state basis. And so we've been, very proactive in saying, everything we're doing is very different from crypto. This is full KYC, know your customer. This is, we guard for money laundering and anti-ML. So there's a lot of, at the end of the day, again, it comes down to economic theory and ideology. But from a legal standpoint, we're always doing things openly, and so therefore, having no problems.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a lot of difficulty complying with the U.S. government regulations for banking and compliance. It's probably very expensive. We've heard other people with, gold-backed debit cards who won't apply, who won't take U.S. customers because they won't pay for the regulations and things like that. So, I can imagine that, it's not exactly cheap to comply with all these regulations, especially when you're complying with federal ones and also each different state as well.
Yeah, but I think it also, there was also some lack of rigor because, it's difficult to build what we built. To make every transaction fully reserved, settlable, titled gold with a serialized number tied to each account and every piece of gold in the network, took a lot of technology. And where some companies may have some sort of certificate or some backing or some future, and they're essentially providing credit into another product or another card, there's a lot of shortcuts to try to make it work. But if you want fully reserved gold, it's not easy to do, and that's really what took us years to build and set up an infrastructure to be able to do that. And so once we've done that, once you realize that this is always a two-part transaction, you start having a lot of those issues fall away from the regulatory side. Because at the end of the day, this is our customer's goal. All we're doing is providing software, as a service for them.
Very good. Now, we've all seen those beautiful pictures and videos online of customers taking delivery of their, I think, 10-gram Bitgold cubes. You guys now also allow delivery of sovereign coins and bars, right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so what types they're allowed, Canadian maples, Krugerrands, gold eagles, things like that?
Yeah, so we like, full, 4.9 bullion, and then we also, do silver coins as well for those that want to swap their gold digital, gold holding into a silver sovereign coin. But again, this is our customer's goal. So, we never set out to make this the service, but when customers ask for it, these are the tools we build because it's their gold. And that's really the approach of our business is to just, keep building products on top of, the core holdings of our customers.
Very good. Why do you think it's so good for you guys to offer storage then in like 5 or 6 different countries' vaults? Why do you think customers would want something like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think it's a political risk diversification and so forth, and really, again, build a canvas and let people paint on it. My original thought was these are financial centers with readily available bullion. From bullion banks and the financial system trading. And so, and we've got a global base. So, if you're in Germany, you probably want to vault in Switzerland. If you're in Mexico, you might want to vault in the U.S. or Canada. So there's a geographic, diversification, and these happen to be the financial centers. Over time, we can turn on more vaults in more locations to be closer to customers. But we just started with the most liquid core vaults for now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You guys allow easy diversification. Some of these other bullion dealers who are good bullion dealers, but some of these other ones charge a lot of money if you want to start storing gold and silver in foreign vaults.
Yeah, and I think and I don't think it's anything that they're trying to overprice the customer. I mean, it really is just about technology and lowering friction. I mean, when you're dealing with layers and layers of middlemen and dealing on a global basis, you need the scale and the technology and the partners to operate at that basis. So that's really what Roy and I took a very different approach. And our view is create a scalable core technology and then partner with these other whether it's bullion dealers or various because at the end of the day we're all on the same side here. We just want sound money back into the financial system, and so our job is to build the core technology to do that.
Now, we've seen a number of bullion dealers go bankrupt in the last 12 to 18 months for different reasons. Some of them were, over leveraged. They were using futures contracts and had bad hedges. Some of them had too much inventory and they were selling it too close to spot and they destroyed their margins. You guys offer, spot gold at very, very low margins. What advantages do you have that allows you guys to sell that compared to, regular bullion dealers and still make money?
Again, it's I think Roy and I from day one were thinking pretty big, and how do we build this to be able to scale as a platform, not as a one-off service, and that's really when thinking about all the big great technology companies, that's what it was all about is creating a scalable platform. So that meant us dealing directly with the best bullion banks, dealing directly with the top vault operator. And creating settlement and clearing systems so that we can operate this at scale and have the network velocity overcome tighter margins. So I think it's just our business approach where we went into this thing wanting to serve a global client base and had to build the technology to do so.
Yeah, because I don't know if you've been paying attention, but there's been a lot of large bullion dealers lately go bankrupt, like Tolving, Northwest Territorial Mint, Bullion Direct, and I think there's a couple more that I'm also missing. And, these customers, some of them paid cash for their bullion, right? And the company still hadn't delivered the metal yet when they went bankrupt. So it's just frustrating if you did that. And some people, they don't dollar cost average. Maybe they were just planning one big order and they put a big order in at that time and now the company can't deliver the metal. It's just very frustrating if you're a customer and that happened to you.
Yeah, and I think that's why Roy and I, from day one, wanted to have absolute transparency. We went public, very much like PayPal did, by the way. We went public very, very early. We could have done the whole unicorn valuation thing, but at the end of the day, if people are wiring, large amounts of money to protect their wealth, they want the transparency of a public company, that's not going anywhere, that has a strong balance sheet, that has audited reserves, and that's the way we went about building this company, was really to build that trust so you didn't have those issues. Often people say, well, how do I trust that the gold is there? And my response is, well, do you use a bank account? How do you trust that your money is there? First of all, it's not. It's at least 90% is being relent out. And so for us, we had to create all of the systems of trust that yes, we are a custodian and in a centralized point, but it's a very distributed system of auditing and checks and balances. So that was really everything that we built our company about is trust. So you don't have that issue. If our public company ever went into problems, it's always your gold, it's always your property right on our platform.
Yeah, and I don't think you guys would have Eric Sprott, who's one of the best precious metals experts in the world, invested in your company if you guys didn't have allocated bullion. I don't think Eric Sprott will invest in anything that doesn't have where he knows for sure the metal is there.
Yeah, no, we've gone through the diligence and even all of our payment processors. I mean every part of this business. People check and recheck and triple check, and in some cases more than that. All of our systems. So, and we learn from that process and just keep trying to improve it. That's really, that's the approach of building a technology company rather than building, just a one-off service.
Yeah, and I think you guys are listening to your customers too, because all the features you keep adding. I'm sure customers have asked for features like this from other companies, and the other companies didn't add them, and yet you guys have worked hard to add these features as an added bonus. You're not charging people any extra for these features, like paying if you're a small business to pay out dividends in gold or pay a payroll, because I'm sure you could probably charge more if you wanted to in order for these services, but you've included them in the price.
No, I appreciate that. But again, our mission is to increase the access to gold and increase the utility. At the end of the day, we believe gold is money. We believe it should compete in someone's allocation with a currency. whether it's their everyday checking account, or it's, a portfolio manager that holds, various currencies. So we needed all the tools to make it perform like a currency and a money, not just as an investment. And so that includes, I use the example, when we were at Money 2020 in Europe, you walk around and all the cool things that are being done by, PayPal and all of the fintechs, Skrill and Stripe and all these companies. At the end of the day, they're communication technologies. They're just settlement technologies. And so why can't we create the same thing using gold rather than US dollars or British pounds or euros or any other settlement currency? So and there's no reason to charge for that. It's you build it, and for us that improves the value of the network, both for us as a business and also for our customers. I mean, if you mentioned that the dollar cost average, that's my favorite use case. I think people should be purchasing, they should make a deposit in gold, equivalent to their leftover in their paycheck. So whether it's, monthly or daily, or they maybe just get their paycheck directly through our system, they receive gold, then they don't have to think about it. Is today the right day to buy, $1,000 or, $1,200 gold coin? Instead, they're building a position in gold, just like they build a position in their bank account over time with earnings. And I think once you do it that way, there's just no system of money that's ever beat gold. I mean, if you time gold wrong, if you pick peaks and pick troughs, then it's totally different. But if you're averaging into gold, there's not a currency system that's a man-made currency system that outperforms a natural element. And this is our concept of using whole money. Why use the genetically modified stuff? And so we just needed the technology to do that.
Yeah, and most professional investors aren't even good at picking tops and bottoms in gold price and many other markets. So I think dollar cost averaging is prudent. I think saving in gold is very good, especially now when we have the threat of negative interest rates coming to the United States. Obviously, with the real inflation rate and the Federal Reserve knocking interest rates down, they are manipulating interest rates lower below the real inflation rate. So we have negative real interest rates. But I think, the Bitgold platform, I think what it's going to do is maybe bring a whole new generation of people to gold. Like I'm a Generation Xer, and there's also millennials. So for people who can, buy a couple of grams a month of gold and save in that way, and then they could pay for it either with a gold-backed debit card or on a smartphone app on their smartphone, this is going to be very efficient for them, where they can protect their savings. Then when they want to pay for something, it just sells fractions of gold, grams of gold, and goes to fiat. So I think it's going to potentially bring a whole new generation of younger people rather than older people who love gold to gold now.
Yeah, I think that's the hope, and that's really why we built the platform. Is Roy's got a great quote. He says, the first gold cycle that ended in 2011 was really based on fear and uncertainty of the financial system. This next cycle will be built on logic. Why pay a bank or a government to hold money? It's just we're getting at the core of financial theory, and it just doesn't make any sense. And so people will be moving more toward the liquid real assets, and gold happens to be the best one with thousands of years of track record.
Yeah, Josh, so I'm on my last question now for this interview. So what's the plan to grow the company in the next 6 to 12 months? Are you guys going to be adding new technology features like you did recently with the dividends paid in gold and payroll in gold? Are there other types of features you guys can add, in the near future? Or I've heard some of our listeners request that you guys add bit silver, so you store silver and allow, the silver to the platform. Is that a plan in the future as well?
Yeah, so first off, as far as adding new features and tools, I mean, we're going to be doing that constantly. I think if I look at some of our internal roadmaps, we're still going to be building this thing for the next couple of years. And so, again, the goal is any functionality you have in any other currency, we want to have that functionality in gold. So that means we've got to kind of replicate every payment system. So this is a developer forward company. So that's part of it. And then yeah, I mean, we're just as we've been doing, just a slow approach to marketing. We're not overspending. We don't need to be an overnight unicorn. It takes 5 years to hear of an overnight success. So for us, it's just just keep building organically. Building these networks, serving our customers, learning from our customers, and just trying to get our customers to believe in it, to spread the word as well, because it really benefits everybody as this network scales. So I think that's kind of our the next couple months, the next couple of years, that's what we'll be doing. But on your second question, as far as adding silver, Gold Money Wealth, or the traditional gold money business, started by James Turk, of course, does hold silver. But from a current account standpoint, the way that the Bitgold network works and the way we can offer it with free storage, we could not be able to do that with silver. And silver itself, it's obviously it's a noble metal, and it's a physical store of value. But silver does have cyclicality, and does have, so for people that want that exposure and want that upside cyclicality, there's options to buy it. But working as an underlying base money, it doesn't work the same way electronically like gold does. So short answer, we will not be adding bit silver, and fundamentally we don't believe it works. But we do obviously like silver, and that's available through the Gold Money platform.
Well, even though you guys haven't spent a lot of money on marketing, almost 1 million customers in a little over a year is still very impressive. I mean, compare that to a lot of other businesses that will never get 1 million customers, or compared to some of these rapidly growing technology companies that had to spend, tens of millions of dollars in marketing to get 1 million customers.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And again, I think these are still just micro networks too. We don't have a huge network in any given country yet. And so for us, it's just keep feeding the network with better tools, better utility, better on ramps, better off ramps, better products, and I believe that the customers will follow.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you for your time, Josh, and we'll have you back on again to discuss updates in Bitgold. If our listeners are curious about Bitgold, want to get more information, or maybe sign up for an account and test it out, how do they do so?
Yeah, so very simple, just bitgold.com, and we make the onboarding very easily. No commitments. You don't have to. There's no minimum deposit or anything like that. You can sign up an account, kick the tires, and that's what most people do. Maybe they'll buy $100 worth of gold or $10 worth of gold, and then redeem some and make sure it works, and link their bank account and make sure that works. Maybe order a coin, and then eventually what we hope is to be a core part of your savings plan, whether that's $10 a month like your Netflix bill, or whether it's thousands a month, to each his own. And I think that's really what we want to try to do is just build the tools so the customers can sign up easily and integrate it however is best for their savings plan.
Great. Well, I just want to wish you guys the best of luck going forward. I think you guys do, like I said at the beginning of the interview, I think you guys do have a great idea, and you've made it a lot more efficient for the more tech-savvy folks who are worried about, negative interest rates and things like that, to start saving in gold compared to, the conventional ways of buying gold and things like that.
Yeah, well, no, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the support from yourselves and a lot of the gold community. We've had a lot of support, and we're all just trying to do some good here. So I thank you for your time and your interest.